Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. Guess what? I'm back again. So, interestingly enough, this article came out just as I was leaving last week, and I wanted to do a quick video on this because I think it's really important, but I didn't have a chance to over the week. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I obviously traveled to Las Vegas and went to the Consumer Electronics Show, or CES, and I did a whole bunch of short videos. None of them were super popular, by the by, but if you're interested in any of the interesting new technology that's come out, from audio stuff to AI things to growing a garden indoors to all sorts of things. Anyway, I just did a small selection. There were thousands of exhibitors, so obviously I wasn't going to do that. But anyway, I wanted to get back to this article because I thought that this was really important. This was, again, January 4th, so about 4 days ago at this point. And it says, Hertz increased its fleet of electric rental cars, then its profits exploded. So two things that are together. And Hertz discovered that EVs are between 50 and 60% cheaper to maintain than gas-powered cars. So that is the crux of the matter. This is from the cool down, and I will put a link to this in the description. And I maybe just read a little bit of this, but mostly I want to talk about why this is so important. Anyway, so let's just read a couple of sentences here. But rental car company Hertz is shifting into high gear on the road to electric vehicles. Already, it has seen a 12% increase in yearly profits, which is not bad, especially with the oddities of what's going on in the world right now, as the globe-spanning rental company accelerates its transition to EVs and lowers costs. Hertz CEO Stephen Scher reported $2.5 billion in revenue during a third quarter earnings call, and in the same quarter, the company confirmed a deal with GM for 175,000 EVs. So this is in addition to the Tesla ones there. This will be interesting because I think the GM delivered 39,000 EVs and change all of last year. So that's a very optimistic thing to be putting in an order for 175,000 EVs. So hopefully GM will be able to make good on this thing. But anyway, at present, Hertz has a bunch of Model 3s and Model Ys. Anyway, so you can see here the revenue figure, in other words, their higher revenue, is partially explained by corporate demand for rentals provided by Hertz rising to 70% of pre-pandemic levels. So that obviously is a good sign for them. But another key contributor was Hertz's discovery that EVs are between 50 and 60% cheaper to maintain than gas-powered cars. And then we have a quote, "We focused on operational excellence and fleet optimization to produce financial results that facilitated investment in our strategic priorities." Wow, that's CEO speak. Isn't it refreshing that Elon doesn't talk like that? Priorities like electrification while enhancing returns to our shareholders and being in the service of our customers, Scher said in the earnings call. So that would be traditional CEO speak. And I for one, definitely appreciate that we get something different from that out of Tesla, although sometimes it is a little bit rough around the edges. But anyway, the important part here, and this is a really interesting thing that he uses the word discovery, Hertz's discovery. I don't know why this would be a discovery. I imagine this is a turn of phrase from the article. I can't believe that Hertz went into this blind and didn't realize that was going to be the case before they purchased all of the Tesla Model 3s and Model Ys at retail price, by the way. They had to get in line. They had to pay full price, all of that kind of stuff. Very, very, well-known story about this. But basically, that means that they're spending half as much on maintenance, right? 50 to 60% cheaper. That means that they're spending half as much on maintenance. They're also renting these vehicles out, not just to customers like me, but if you want to drive Uber, you can also rent a vehicle from Hertz and drive it on Uber. And there's sort of this package where they give you the insurance and the cost of the car and all of that kind of stuff. And you're essentially leasing it from Uber, as far as I understand. I don't think you purchase it. I think what you're doing is leasing it. But these are all big moves that are enabled by the fact that the vehicles are so much cheaper to maintain. In other words, if Hertz was having to spend as much as they do on ICE cars for oil changes, for basic maintenance, for all of the kind of trips to the shop and all of that kind of stuff that they have to do, it would be probably on the order of prohibitively expensive for them to do this rental, this leasing service out to Uber drivers. And so they probably wouldn't be doing that, or at least not as aggressively, or they would have to charge the Uber drivers so much money that it would not be worthwhile for them, because of course they have to make money after paying all of these bills as well. So anyway, this is all really interesting news. The upshot of this, and the really important part, is not just for Hertz, but for everybody. So you've got in the world of vehicles, and I'm just going to talk about sedans and SUVs and light duty trucks and things, right? If we're talking about giant Caterpillar trucks and things like that, or semis, that's all professional at this point. But in the world of kind of more consumer-sized vehicles, you have two markets. You have the business to consumer market, and you have the business to business market. And thus far, Tesla as a small company primarily was business to consumer, B2C business for a long, long time. But what we're seeing is a shift of Tesla, and of course, other vehicle manufacturers have been doing this for a long time, but shifting towards B2C, B2B, excuse me. They're shifting towards business to business as a consumer. And while I as a consumer might care about the color of the car or the look of the car or the particular things in the trim of the car, whether it has 3 cup holders or 4 cup holders or things like that, I as a consumer might care about that. Fleet owners, in other words, commercial customers, business customers, don't care about that kind of stuff. They want to know what is the bottom line. So if I purchase this car for X number of dollars, $40,000, let's say 50, just a nice round number. If I purchase a car for $50,000, how long do I have to have that, given the rental rates or whatever it is that I'm using as my business model, given those rates and everything, how long do I have to own this vehicle before I make the money back? And of course, then there's the resale value as well. So most of the time, again, my outside understanding, I don't know everything about the internals of rental car companies, but basically they'll rent a car for 2 to 3 years, somewhere in that range, and they will put a certain number of miles on that vehicle and then sell it on the used market. And my understanding is that they're not really making a profit on this vehicle. They're accruing money, and they're basically, I don't know, if you own an apartment building, it's the same kind of thing, right? You pay a lot of money to purchase the apartment building, but then as you rent, you're renting out to everybody, and you're not necessarily making money right then. The big deal is if and when you sell that apartment building, then you've built up equity because the people who are renting the apartment for you are paying your equity. So essentially, these rental car companies are purchasing vehicles for $50,000, whatever that price is, X number of dollars. They buy that, and then people pay essentially they pay the loans back, so that at the end of this all, a company like Hertz, I'm sure they come out making some positive money after owning this vehicle for a couple of years, but they have a certain amount of money. But then when they sell the vehicle on the used market, the people who've rented the car have paid off the car and have given you some profit. And then when you sell it on the used market, you make a big other chunk of profit. So that's the way it kind of works. And it's a long-term sort of thinking, right? You have to think about the future of all of this stuff. Whereas what happens is here, if you can reduce the costs involved in the vehicle. So if you have 2 vehicles that cost $50,000, but one costs 50% as much to maintain as the other one does, that means that you are getting more money and you're paying off the car quicker with that vehicle. And when you resell it, it just so happens that EVs also have higher resale values as well, which means that then you get more money on the back end as well. And that means that for corporate, business customers, the only thing that matters to them, they don't care about the color of the car. They don't care about the trim. They don't care about that stuff, aside from the fact that if the consumer's unhappy with it, they won't rent it. But, given the fact that you've got basic levels of trim and all of that sort of stuff that are all fairly consistent between vehicles, that what you get is they care about the bottom line. They only care about the amount of money they're going to make. They care about how long can we keep this vehicle, right? Because if you have to sell it and buy a new car, then that's a whole other expense thing and all of that kind of stuff. So if you could keep the car for, say, another extra year or something, and or sell it back at a higher price, and or not have to pay as much maintenance on all of the vehicle fleet that you have, all of those things are increasing the speed at which you make your money back, right? You put down $50,000 on this vehicle and you want to make that money back as fast as possible and then make as big a profit as possible. And so that's what they care about. And you've also got the people who are driving Uber as well, are also putting a lot of miles on these vehicles. And that's also something that Hertz, because they own the vehicle afterwards, they can lease it to these guys for a couple of years. They can put 100,000 miles on the vehicle, perhaps something like that, maybe a lot of miles. But then Hertz can sell that vehicle for money. So they're making money off the Uber drivers after purchasing the vehicle. And the Uber drivers are effectively then paying, to increase the equity in that vehicle. And then they get to sell it at the end. So they're making money in a lot of different ways. But every time Hertz has to spend money to do an oil change or take it into the shop or do any kind of recall work or anything like that, they're losing money back again. So what they care about is making money as quickly, a return on investment as quickly as possible. And what you've got with these EVs is an obvious place where you can save a lot of money. I'm sure if it saved 10%, Hertz would be super happy. 50 to 60% is huge. Now, when I said, the discovered that the electric vehicles are between 50 to 60% cheaper, I find that difficult to believe that anybody who hasn't been paying attention or has been paying attention wouldn't know that already, right? It's obvious. I've owned our Tesla for years. I've replaced the tires. That's what I've had to do. No other maintenance at all. I guess I replaced the windshield washer fluid. So, okay, I have had to fill up the windshield washer fluid container, right? But nothing else really. And that's not the case for an ICE car. So there's a lot of lowered costs as well. In addition, Hertz directly doesn't have to do this because the customer does this for the most part. But I just noted, and I will actually bring this up if I can find the image quickly, that I saved last year. Let's see if I can find this picture here real quick. Yep, here we go. So, yeah, look at that amount of money right there, right? Oops, let's see if we can get that in focus, right? That's the amount of money that I saved last year. So that's what Tesla was telling me. So I spent $247 in electrical charging last year and saved $3,446. So I saved a lot of money. I mean, I'm thinking about that in terms of the amount of months that every month I'm paying like a little over $600 for the vehicle. So $1,200, $2,400, $36. So, we're looking at half a year. Basically the energy savings paid for my car for half a year, my finance payments on the car. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Again, a consumer might not care about that as much, but if you own a fleet, that's all you care about. If you're saving that kind of money on charging, if you're saving that kind of money on maintenance, if the resale value is higher, all of these things make it basically a brain dead decision for any company that has to purchase a fleet of vehicles to purchase a fleet of Teslas and or other EVs, although I will say that Hertz might find that they don't have quite the savings with other manufacturers that they do with Tesla because Tesla is so specific about trying to make these vehicles as maintenance-free as possible. So anyway, I think they might be a little disappointed with other manufacturers and they might end up purchasing more Teslas because they find that Tesla's actually cheaper. But anyway, whatever the result is, all EVs are just almost by definition, because they have fewer moving parts, going to be cheaper to maintain and operate than the ICE equivalents. And then on top of that, you've got Tesla, which is just particularly good at this stuff. They make these things really, really well. They make them so they don't need maintenance. And so you get companies that are making a lot of money. So as opposed to consumers that might make irrational decisions, corporations are going to make rational decisions. They're going to say, what's going to help our bottom line? What's going to give us the best ROI? All of that kind of stuff. And that all points towards fleets of EVs. And that means that the transition is going to happen even faster than people think, because these fleet owners, they purchase a lot of cars. So, they're effectively, if they're purchasing 100,000 cars, that's 100,000 individuals purchasing a car. That's a lot of individuals just with one company buying cars. So, and Hertz will buy a lot more than 100,000. They'll buy on the order of millions of these things. So we're looking at a massive, massive usage of EVs, which is going to drive up usage even more. I did a video just yesterday, if I'm remembering correctly, all the time zone changes and stuff. But anyway, I'll put a link to it at the end of this video about how in Germany, 1/3 of all vehicles are battery electric vehicles, not even plug-ins, but BEVs. And that is huge, huge stuff. And, so again, we're looking at this. This is all going to push the market as rapidly as people can produce EVs. The market is going to go towards EVs. Things are being disrupted radically. And one of the things I found at CES was, I did a VinFast drive through and a drive around. And so you can check that out if you're interested. I'll put a link to that at the end of this video as well. But there was also just a ton of companies that I hadn't even heard of, including companies in like Turkey and stuff that are making electric vehicles now. So we're looking at a completely brand new world that's going on right now. So all of the incumbents governments should be quaking in their boots, and all of the startups led by Tesla are the ones that are in the real, potential leadership position to really, really make this happen. So the faster they can produce quality EVs that people really enjoy driving, the faster this is going to happen. And this Hertz article was exactly what indicates that to me. And it will be led, if by no other reason, by corporate fleets, because they are going to care a lot about the expenses above all else. And EVs, and in particular Teslas, are that kind of vehicle. They save a lot of money. So I foresee many companies doing this, and I foresee the EV transition happening even faster than people predict because of this very thing. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking. And obviously you can tell I can't really talk that well. Get back to teaching tomorrow, so hopefully my voice will recover by then. Anyway, in the meantime, everybody have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.